So is your specialty in oncology, or do you monitor a lot of different things?
So my specialty right now is in medical device, where I'm working right now.
Ooh, okay.
Yes. So where I was, CRO wise, as a study manager, I was in endocrine studies, which were both therapeutic and device. Um, and then at the site level, when I was a CRC or clinical research coordinator, I did oncology and non-oncology, both drug and device. And more recently, I made the switch to a sponsor level who has pretty much only device studies going on.
Okay. So which do you like better?
Um, I have to say, I really enjoy device, but I also really do miss learning about the cutting edge medications that are coming out. I think it's just a balance. If you have to kind of pick and choose. I've never really worked with a CRA that did both drug and device, so I think it's kind of dependent upon what works best for you.
Hmm.
At this time, because I just started device, I can't say much, but I think that both you learn a lot from. You learn regulatory is very different for device than it is for drug, and so there's the added benefit of learning that side of things if you haven't really done any work in the device industry.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of jobs for hiring for medical device, and they specifically want people with, a few years of medical device experience. So
Mm-hmm.
it definitely seems like a very different thing. And yeah, definitely at the CROs that I know, they have their own unit. And the CRO that I work for too, they have their own unit dedicated to devices. So
Right.
that's cool. Um, all right, so switching gears now to, and yeah, how long were you a study coordinator for?
So I was a study coordinator for about a year and 5 months, so a
Oh,
year and a half almost. Yep, I
okay,
more recently made the switch.
okay, all right. And so you mentioned before, so you've been at the site level, you've been at the CRO level, and I guess you've recently been at the sponsor level as well.
Mm-hmm.
What level do you like the best? And can you describe a little bit to the listeners, like, I guess what the difference is between the different levels? Because a lot of people are brand new to clinical research and don't really know much, like have never had any experience. So,
Right. So I would say that the I would have to say I think I really enjoy being on the sponsor level. Um, I guess it depends on which sponsor you work for because the sponsor I work for doesn't use a CRO to run its studies. Thus, I'm directly working under the sponsor. A lot of
okay.
CRAs work under the CRO, and then the CRO is basically what gets contracted. The CRO and the sponsor have a contract, and the CRAs represent the sponsor studies. Um, so I really enjoy being on the sponsor side because you really get to see the ins and outs of the protocol development and you get to work with the people who directly are making these devices, the engineers. You get to work with the principal scientists. You get to work with everyone directly. The CRO is basically an organization that the sponsor contracts to do a lot of the work if they don't have the in-house manpower to do monitoring or site management and all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy doing that as well, but I think that I would still pick the sponsor level. And basically, as a site, I really enjoyed doing that short term. I don't think that I would ever have stayed there long term. I think a year and a half was enough for me
Uh-huh.
to really learn everything. And I think that's true. If you, so a lot of people have asked me this who are interested into getting more experience. How long do you have to be a coordinator to really be a good coordinator? And I think that if you work really hard, you just need about a year and a half.
Yeah. I think that's probably safe for a lot of the positions in clinical research, at least like the ones you can get your foot in the door on.
Right.
I remember my manager told me for my first position, she said it was going to take a year before I would feel like really comfortable. And I was like, no way is it going to take a year. But she was right.
Yeah. It
She was
takes
right.
time.
Yeah. And Okay. And then, so that's actually really cool that your sponsor actually runs the trials as well. Because, being on the CRO side, you got to ask the sponsor for everything, as they're the final say so and everything. And you got to direct all that mail and attention to them, and then relay that to the rest of the CRO team, and then relay that again to the sites. So I'm sure that's pretty cool, having everything kind of in-house on the sponsor side, and probably makes decisions go by faster, right?
Yes, definitely. So I remember when I was on the CRO side, there was a lot of back and forth. You would have weekly meetings with the sponsor, and the sponsor, if you asked any questions, the sponsor would have to have their own internal meeting to send you the information about their decisions. Then you would get that information, and then you would have an internal meeting with all of your team, and then make a decision about how to approach. Do you have to go back to the sponsor and say something needs to be tweaked, or are we all set to, relay the information to the sites? And then you would go to the sites, and then from there the sites may push back on a new decision, or they may agree, but a lot of internal meetings separately instead of everyone being kind of together.
Right.
On the sponsor level, it's not like that. If there's a question or a clarification needs to be sent to these sites, it's pretty quick. It doesn't take that long because everyone is pretty much in-house. On the sponsor side, there's 3 CRAs that are helping out with the study. One that travels for the study, and then the others, they kind of do some of the extra work that needs to be done. And then everyone is very accessible. So that's one benefit of working with the sponsor as a CRA.
Okay. So you said there's only one traveling CRA?
Yep. So for every study, there is one CRA that does the traveling. So it could be, if there's 5 sites, then you handle the 5 sites for the study. And everyone takes, depending on the study, a different CRA is appointed to do the traveling. So it is beneficial because you get to really focus on particular studies instead of being spread thin, which is helpful.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. Okay. I've never heard that before. So are you the traveling CRA for these protocols yet, or?
Yep. So for right now, I've been there for about a month now, and I'm now on 4 studies, and I will be traveling for all 4 studies.
Oh, wow. And then, okay, so you're not going to be doing any of the other people are like in-house CRAs? They kind of do that?
Yeah, so they do. So my position is up to 50% travel, which is actually not bad compared to other entry-level CRA positions, which you will very easily see, 75, 80%, depending on where you work for. I really like the 50% because I get to be in-house also. I get to be in the office at least for half of the time. Yeah. Again, I'm the direct contact with the site. So whereas the other CRAs that are considered in-house, they pretty much do a lot of the documentation paperwork for the study, but they are not the primary contact. So my day-to-day tasks involve taking care of the sites and making sure everything is being done correctly.
Okay. So do you have to worry about submitting documents to the TMF, or you just collect them and hand them off?
So I collect them and then I file them in our eTMF.
Okay.
But the in-house they're the ones who will go ahead and print them out and then file them into because we have a paper version of it as well. So
okay.
they'll file it into that. And they kind of help remind me if there's something that they realize I need when I'm going off to the site. So if they realize there's something that needs to be collected that we had not discussed about collecting before, then they serve as that reminder as well.
Okay, cool. So do you like that setup? I mean, I know you're fairly new in it, but as opposed to the CRO, I don't know if it's a fair comparison to make, because the sponsor is probably a bigger company than the CRO was. So I don't know if it's a an apples to apples comparison, but do you like that setup differently? Because I know a lot of CRAs get frustrated if there's a bunch of CRAs that kind of like back them up on a study, because it can create some confusion for the site. Like, who do you reach out to, especially if a CRA is on the road
Right.
a lot? Then they might not be contacted often.
Yep. So I am the only CRA contact for the sites. They do not. I don't think the sites even have the contact information for the in-house CRAs.
Okay.
So really, any site issues have to be relayed to me. The other contact is the project manager. So if for whatever reason I'm on vacation, they don't go to another CRA. They'll go to the project manager and ask a question. Yep.
Okay.
So that way, with 3 CRAs or 4, whatever amount of CRAs like backing each other up, you're right. It can cause a lot of confusion. And quite frankly, I think that sites get very frustrated when there's, a list of CRAs that they can potentially reach out to when they have an issue and they don't know who the best one to reach out to is. So the sponsor I work for tries to make it very transparent that, there's one lead CRA and they're the ones that's supposed to help you with any issues that you have.
Okay. All right. Very good.